So if you've been around credit card YouTube for the last 3 to 6 months, you know that American Express has kind of been talked about way more often than anybody else, and not necessarily the greatest light. Well, with American Express overhauling a lot of their credit cards, disallowing you to get certain welcome offers if you get them out of order, annual fees changing, credits changing, so many different changes, it's hard to really keep up. And about a year ago, I did a topic on exactly everything you need to know before getting American Express credit cards, but I figured that video needs a ton of updates, which is why we're doing it now. The first point and the first thing you need to know before getting into American Express credit cards, and I feel like is one of the more important things nowadays, is what exactly is family language and how it's going to affect the order in which you should get American Express credit cards for the future. Now, if you're unfamiliar, family language is the coined term to kind of mean that you may be disallowed from getting the welcome offer on certain American Express credit cards if you've had one of the same cards in a similar family. Like, for example, if maybe you're somebody who the first American Express card you've ever gotten was the Amex Platinum card, well, unfortunately for you, you no longer are able to get the welcome offer on the gold card and on the green card. And I know those people exist. I've seen those comments. I've seen people out there that unfortunately this has happened to them. And that's why I'm making this video today, so you don't end up like that, unfortunately. Gone are the days where I got my American Express credit cards. Basically, you could have gotten them out of order. You could have got a platinum, a green, and a gold, and got all the welcome offers on that alone. So in the way that it's written right now, at least for those specific, more popular charge cards, like the green, the gold, and the platinum, currently, American Express wants you to essentially climb the Amex ladder, so to speak, meaning get the green card first, get that bonus, maybe it's 45K, maybe it's 60K, okay, cool, now sign up for the gold card, get 60K points, 90K points, whatever you can find, and then move up to the platinum card, and then again, get your 100K, 150K points, whatever you can actually get. So if you're somebody that doesn't know about this and you rush to get the gold card first, well, now you forego, 60,000 points on the green. That's a lot of money that you're leaving on the table. So my suggestion is, yes, if you're going to be starting with the Amex charge cards and that's what's enticing you, start with the green card, then move up to the gold, then move up to the platinum. And again, this doesn't mean you have to keep them open forever, maybe just 1 year, let a year pass, and then you can cancel the green card, maybe keep the gold, whatever your life actually dictates at that time, a year from then. And another thing, which I see a lot of comments now, they're wondering what the language looks like between other versions of the platinum card. Now, if you're unfamiliar, American Express has a few different versions of the Amex Platinum card. You have the standard vanilla version that everybody knows and loves, but then you also have like a business version of the platinum card. You also have a Charles Schwab version of the platinum card and a Morgan Stanley version of the Amex Platinum card, right? And they all virtually do the same thing with a couple of differences here and there, which leaves people confused and wondering like, could I get the 100K points on the Charles Schwab card and 150K on the vanilla platinum? To which I would say, unfortunately, nowadays, not anymore. Not anymore. I'm really sorry. And I don't mean to rub it in, but I'm just saying how unfortunate it is because I was able to get a Charles Schwab 100K bonus and a vanilla platinum, I think like 60K bonus at that time. I was able to double dip on those offers. Nowadays, you can't do that anymore. So if you're going to choose one, more than likely you're going to want to choose the vanilla platinum card because you're actually able to get higher offers than usually you can get on the Schwab or the Morgan Stanley. Usually 100K is the max for those versions, but the vanilla platinum card you can get as high as 150K, which is much higher. And then if for some reason you want the Charles Schwab card, you could always cancel that original vanilla platinum card and then get the Charles Schwab, but again, knowing you're going to be foregoing any welcome offer completely. And then you might be asking like, okay, so those are the charge cards. Is this true of any other, families of, American Express credit cards? And to that answer is also yes. The Delta credit cards also got revamped, to which they actually want you to climb the ladder itself again. They want you to get a Delta Blue, then a Gold, then a Platinum, and then a Reserve. And in that order. And again, if you get the highest tier Delta Reserve, you're foregoing all of the welcome offers on all of the lower end cards. So you want to choose wisely before actually applying for American Express credit cards because this language is here to stay and more likely to grow as we go forward. And if you want to get even more niche, the Prince of Travel has an article here on all the different family language relationships. Like, for example, if you already have the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant card, you are no longer going to be eligible for the welcome offer on the Marriott Bonvoy Bevy card. And much like the charge cards, the cashback cards actually do follow suit. So again, here is where you'd want to climb the ladder as well. Like if you want to get the Cash Magnet card, you'll only be eligible for this offer if you didn't already have the Blue Cash Every Day, the Blue Cash Preferred, etc. So there's a lot of language to look out for, and it's definitely something to research before applying for any American Express credit cards. Like currently, there is no language on the Hilton credit cards, but mark my words, after this video is filmed, I think they're going to change that language just like they did on the Delta cards, to where if you have a Hilton Aspire, maybe you're foregoing the welcome offers on the other Hilton cards. So If you're thinking about getting Hilton cards too, I would probably just recommend getting the no annual fee one first, then the Surpass, then the Aspire, so this way you never have to worry about this new family language. Now again, I know not everything is about welcome offers, etc., but there is something else to consider once you're going to apply for your first Amex credit card. Now, you might have seen this term thrown around, so I just want to let you know what that is before you actually make a mistake, which is pudge or pop-up jail. Or if you're in my case, people call it pub or pop-up prison, which is essentially a pop-up window that will come up when you are almost through with your application on your Amex credit card. I'll show it on screen right here, and it essentially says you are not eligible to earn a welcome offer on this said credit card. Now, at this point, when you see something like this during your application, you have two choices. Either one, to accept the card without a welcome offer, which nobody's really going to ever advocate for, unless for some reason you just need this credit card to live, which is, I don't think anybody needs that. So if this window does pop up, I personally would recommend just backing out of the window, backing out of the whole application. You won't get a hard pull on your credit score, so don't worry about that. And you could live to earn a welcome offer another day when hopefully one day that pop-up window doesn't pop up. Or number two, you're a person that absolutely needs this credit card no matter what. You don't care if it's a welcome offer, you don't care if you get it, whatnot. Then yes, you can hit accept and you'll still go through the application to get approved for that card, and you forego the welcome offer. But don't let me see you make that mistake. You saw this video, you're watching right now. If you see that window and you accept anyway, you have nobody to blame but yourself, right? And if you see that, back out of that application faster than the Roadrunner, right? Okay, so that's family language, but what about other rules, right? There's other standard rules that come with American Express, right? So I guess one other rule to consider, and one thing to mention, of course, is Chase 524 rule. You guys probably already familiar by now, but for those in the back who are not, the Chase 524 rule essentially states that if you get 5 or more credit cards between any issuers like Chase, Capital One, American Express, Citi, what have you, 5 cards in a 2-year period will pretty much disallow you to get any more Chase cards until maybe those 2 years go by and now you are under 524. Maybe you only had 3 cards in the last 2 years. Then you will be eligible again. So one thing to consider is before getting Amex credit cards is, do you have all the Chase cards that you want already, right? Some people just blitz and get 5 Amex credit cards and then they can't get new Chase cards for the next 2 years. So something to consider before applying. And again, there are other rules out there that are still touted for the people who are kind of just getting started. Of course, there are rule breakers out there, right? There are people breaking those rules, but at least for what's stated on the internet, there are a few rules to kind of be aware of. Now, the first one is the 2 and 90 rule, which essentially states that you can only get approved for 2 American Express credit cards in a 90-day or 3-month period. So if you want, for some reason, a third American Express credit cards, technically by this rule, would have to wait about maybe the 91st day to apply for another Amex card. You also have the 1 in 5 rule, which essentially states that you can only get approved for an Amex card once every 5 days. So I get approved on a Sunday, I'm not going to try to apply for another one until, I guess, Saturday or the following Sunday, something like that. And then also you have the 5 credit card rule or the 10 charge card rule. So you might be saying, what's the difference between a charge card and a credit card? The easiest way to kind of remember it is a charge card has no set limit. A credit card does have a set limit. So like the green card, the platinum, and the gold, these do not have preset spending limits. They basically just fluctuate based on your income and, how the weather is that day. But for the credit cards, more specifically, like, maybe the Blue Business Plus, maybe the Delta credit cards, maybe the Hilton credit cards, where I have, maybe $5,000-$10,000 limits on these cards, the rule has always stated that you can only have 5 credit cards in your lineup. Now, over the course of the last couple of years of making these types of videos, credit card videos, we've seen people break those rules and actually break below those rules in a weird way. So the 5 card rule is now considered the 4, 5, 6 rule, so where you could have maybe 4 to 6 credit cards, depending on who you are. So if you're a person named Stan the Credit Frog or Sledge, you can have more than 5 credit cards with American Express, right? I think Sledge has like 8 now, which is like insane. So there are exceptions to the rule, but use that rule as a guide for you to choose your next cards. Now, on the topic of welcome offers, I also wanted to mention that there is a touted rule out there, aka the once per lifetime rule. And as the rule states, you can only have 1 welcome offer. So maybe I got an Amex Gold card. I will never get an Amex Gold card welcome offer again for as long as I live. So if it's, if you live till tomorrow or you live for another 150 years, like Brian Johnson, then yes, you'll never get a welcome offer ever again. However, of course, there are nuances. Again, people break the rules occasionally, and we've heard data points of people actually testing out the 7-year rule, which had people testing out and were able to get new welcome offers after about 5 to 7 years after getting their Amex Gold card. They got a new welcome offer. So there are exceptions, but again, these are rules to just use as a guide. Much like the railings that come up about bowling, every now and again you get somebody that hits the ceiling, right? What about credit scores that are needed to actually get approved for these said credit cards, right? I remember back when I was about 21 years old, and I remember seeing videos from Graham Stephan talking about the illustrious gold card. I remember being so freaking excited for it. I was like, man, when is my score going to be high enough to get approved for a gold card, right? I think I had maybe high 500s at that time, and I was just waiting for the day to be approved for the Amex gold card. And while a lot of people mention that getting an Amex credit card nowadays is essentially like taking candy from a baby, it's just the easiest thing in the world, how soon do we forget that you actually do need a certain credit score to actually get approved? And up until this point, I don't think I've ever seen anybody lower than a 640 or maybe 650 credit score actually get approved for an American Express credit card. Maybe correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I don't think anyone has yet. So while it is very easy and maybe easier to get Amex cards than some other high-tiered premium cards, it's also good to know that for people who are just getting started, getting started in the credit card points and miles game and growing their credit scores, just as I was when I was 21 years old, just know I would probably wait till about high 600s. I think I got approved for my first Amex Gold card around 680 or 690 score, somewhere around there. So that's probably what I would recommend before applying. Of course, nowadays, American Express also has their own pre-approval tool, so feel free to use that if that is useful to you. It can let you know if you're going to be pre-approved or whatnot. So that's a lot of like the nuanced new stuff that's been happening with American Express, and it's something that you absolutely need to know before getting Amex credit cards. But then there's other things. There's a lot of other things to consider. Another thing to consider is annual fees. And I'm not necessarily just talking about the current day annual fees on some of these credit cards. I'm talking about almost sometimes projected annual fees on certain credit cards to know. Like if I talked about Hilton credit cards or Delta credit cards, about 5 or 6 months ago, the annual fees were about 20 to 30% cheaper than they are today. And I'm pretty sure, even though people don't like to hear it, probably a few months after this video releases, the annual fees on the Platinum, the Gold, and the Green card are probably going to be 20 to 30% higher. So while these annual fees are already very, very high, they can still go higher. So 2 things on this topic alone. Now, number 1 is you have to, of course, do your own due diligence. You have to do your own research on if these cards are worth it to you, not today, right? Not on projected value, not on anything. Can you get an Amex Gold card and value it today? Can you get a Platinum card and it makes sense today at a $700 annual fee? Because if alone it doesn't make sense at the $700 annual fee, when or if there are changes down the road and the annual fee gets raised, then you're more than likely to absolutely not be able to value it, and then maybe you'll be stuck with the card. Fear not though, because if you do decide to get some credit cards, maybe even after this video, of course, linked always in the pinned comment for Amex credit cards. I appreciate it if you do. But if you do today, you're essentially locking in, at least for the next year, of this current annual fee. So $250 Gold, $695 Platinum, $150 Green, before or if there even are changes down the road. So I would say if you're waiting on it and you already can conservatively do it, you might as well get it today before there are changes. But again, you have to do your own research on if it's worth it to you or not. Along with that, of course, there are many other American Express credit cards that have no annual fees, very low annual fees. So it's something to consider as well. And there's many videos that I've done on those specific credit cards alone. But the annual fees themselves are not for the faint of heart and are to be respected. And the second thing is, on the topic of respect, there are ways to actually mitigate the annual fees on these said Amex credit cards once you get them. The first one I always like to mention is anybody in the active military right now. You can have a military waiver for pretty much most, if not all, American Express credit cards, where the military will waive the annual fee. Like if you have a couple Platinum cards, you can essentially get them completely for free, or in some cases discounted. So it's something to know of if you are active military watching this video right now. A lot of these caveats might not even matter to you. You might be able to get free annual fees on all these cards and reap all the benefits as a salute or respect for serving the nation, which American Express supports you. Another thing is points, right? We talked a lot about welcome offers, how to earn membership reward points, Amex points, but American Express points are only as good as you know how to use them. And it's something to consider before actually getting into the world of American Express credit cards, because, well, and one thing to mention is pretty much all banks, except for American Express, allows you to cash out your points inherently on the cards at 1 cent per point. Meaning like a Chase City could effectively take 10,000 points and put it into your bank account as $100. American Express pretty much never really allows you to do that. There are some exceptions with the Charles Schwab, Morgan Stanley, and Business Platinum. cards, but for the average person with some average Amex credit cards, the most you can really do is cash them out for a statement credit, so just paying your bill on your card at zero point 0.6 cents per point. So that same 10,000 points is actually just $60 in value versus the 100 with any other bank. So the reason I mentioned that first is if you're going to get into the ecosystem of American Express, you're going to have to know how to use the points in the most effective way possible, which would be using those points towards transfer partners for either hotels, or what most people use them for is for airlines, and even at airlines most of the time for overseas international travel. But again, I'm just mentioning this because it's something to research, and there's plenty of other channels out there that talk about how to maximize your Amex points to the best of the ability. So after this video, you can go watch theirs, but something to consider nonetheless before getting started in the game. Speaking of using those points for traveling abroad, another thing you actually have to note is, well, foreign transaction fees. These are the fees that you get by using certain credit cards in a foreign country. Makes sense? And if you want the actual definition, I'll put it on the screen right here, but it's essentially a charge of 3% on most credit cards just for using their credit cards overseas, internationally, and whatnot. So American Express does have a lot of cards that don't have foreign transaction fees, but it's good to educate yourself on which ones do. In this way, if you're planning to use them like completely abroad very, very often, then maybe you want to stay away from those cards, or at least just don't bring them with you abroad. But another thing on that is that a lot of people mention that American Express cards aren't necessarily widely accepted in all places in the entire world, right? Places like Asia is where most people say like, oh, they don't accept Amex, they only accept Visas or MasterCards, etc. So just know if you are going to be traveling with these said credit cards that we're talking about today, that maybe you're going to want to also bring some Visa cards, some MasterCards. So this way you're covered in the event that they don't accept American Express. Amex Offers, which I think is very, very slept on still to this day. Amex Offers is basically a full list of all different things that you can spend money on in day-to-day life, but you can get back sometimes cash, and most of the time just extra membership reward points just for using that specific credit card and enabling that off. So whether you have a service that does it for you or you just do it manually like myself, just know that those are there, and at least once a day, or if you're just before you're about to buy something, go check the offers, see if there's actually anything on there that you would be spending on money on it anyway, and this way you're maximizing the amount of money that you're getting back for all of your spend. And as always, if you are looking to get any American Express credit cards before any annual fees get raised, or if you just decide that it's just the right time for you to get one right now, you could always look in the pinned comment below or the QR code on the screen right now, and it'll direct you to my specific link, which of course I salute you and I appreciate you. And as always, thank you guys so much for watching. I appreciate you.